Good evening. I call the Chaska City Council meeting for Monday, February 24th, 2020. It's together at 7 p.m. We rise and for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Nate, would you call roll, please? Oh, he's over there.
One
moment.
Thank you.
I gotta call roll. I don't want people to think I'm Mark. So
Take off my IT hat and I'll put on my roll call hat. Many hats. Councilmember Hatfield.
Here.
Councilmember Hubbard.
Here.
Councilmember Wong. Here. And Mayor Pro Tem Gra.
Here. Brings us to,
Mayor Winchell is absent tonight, just
Thank you.
to state that.
that brings us to item 4, adopt the agenda. Any changes or additions or subtractions from the agenda as presented tonight?
I make a motion to adopt the agenda.
A second?
I have a motion from Councilmember Hubbard, a second from Councilmember Wong. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor to approve the agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Agenda approved. That brings us to consent, visitor presentation. We have lots of people out in the crowd. Anyone who wants to come, this would be the time to, if you had nothing that's specifically on the agenda, you want to voice in front of the council, just no action can get taken under visitor presentation. But if it's something we just need to hear or discuss or for future conversation, we ask you can come up to the front. Ken, if you want to. Yep, go ahead. We just ask you to say who you are and what your address is.
Hi, thanks for listening to me tonight. This is Ken Haskin at Chestnut Realty in Chaska.
Just the microphone.
Go to
Yep.
this.
Thank you.
All right. It's Ken Haskin at Chestnut Realty in downtown Chaska here. Thanks for letting me talk tonight. Mainly what I'm just asking you to please look at the handouts that I gave to all of you regarding they're going to propose to do the Chaska Farmers Market down here in downtown Chaska again. And it really hurts us a lot, guys. You take away 3 major handicap parking spots, and my window overlooks those parking spots for the city of Chaska for paying utility bills, coming to the library, going to the dentist, going to Carver County Abstracting, coming to our real estate office. There's a law office that's across the street from the city hall that affects. I have talked to Terry Dirks with the Size Restaurant. It affects all of us. Parking in downtown Chaska has always been difficult, guys. And you're a brain trust to what we do right here at the city hall. Whether it's somebody coming in with planning meetings, whether it's somebody just coming in to pay their utility bills. I watch people struggle, get out of their vehicles in those handicapped parking spots. Because my window overlooks some of them, I can help because it's right there and it's just a little bit away from me. But think of that as you guys are taking that parking space away from all of us. Please look at the parking lot on Wednesdays. Say that it's not important to our community. Look at the parking spots, and there's no parking on State Highway 41 on this side of the street, 0. You got a ton of parking over there by that park. Please, when I was first brought this up last year, they said, Ken, it's for 1 year. It's going back over by the park. Gosh, just like yesterday afternoon, I learned it's coming back to the parking lot where you're gonna take it away. We're a business. 5 days a week, guys, you're taking away a business's parking lot 1 day of the week. You have 4 days, and it's essential. All of us have my parents had strokes. They were in wheelchairs. To have that parking spot close to where you can get into a business or an entity you want to go through is awesome versus circling the lot. A client last year, I couldn't get even near it on Wednesday. We parked way down on 4th, wheelchaired him up to the city to get him to his real estate closing to sign documents at Carver County Abstracting. I have letters enclosed here from Nick Moonen, who owns Carver County Abstracting, not liking it. Terry Dirks from Size Restaurant. Our office is owned by Cal Haskin. It's signed by him. It's signed by a lot of our staff. That's the only people I could get to on short notice, guys. It affects us dramatically. Please keep parking in downtown Chaska for people that care about this community. I love selling this town. You've done an awesome job with it. I love the curling center, the community center. and where you guys have located the city hall, but I'm just asking for some help. Please keep parking in downtown. Thanks. Do I have to answer any questions, or that's pretty much it?
I mean, I have some questions, but
Okay.
you would like to answer them. So I sit on the Downtown Business Alliance, so I got to see all the plans and everything last year when they were putting it together. And I had a lot of questions about parking too. I've lived here 30 years.
Yep.
And my father had a stroke when we moved here, so I completely understand the handicap parking. And remember as a little 8-year-old watching him try and do that, so I totally understand that. So just to put in some, I don't know, reference, Nate, help me out here. We put parking spots, you
Yeah.
mentioned that I think before the meeting, you mentioned that those were taken by vendors.
There was like, I want to say 5 or 6 spots that had a brief little sign that was placed in front of them. Keep in mind, staff and our work people started arriving at 7 in the morning or 8 in the morning. You know, and we had to be out of the parking lot by, I think it was noon. I'm gonna do it from the best of my 50-year-old memory, and it's a
Yeah,
little bit older than
I think
that.
it was noon last year. I think they're pushing it back
Last
to
year was
1.
noon, this year the
Yeah.
intent is to close it at 1 o'clock.
It hurts so much, guys. If you could see how it affects the title company, we closed at different offices, so we wouldn't have to close at our Chaska location. We would close in Waconia because they have another office there. But to make people driving 10 miles further just because we lost a parking lot, it's not cool. I mean, but those 6 spots, yeah, if you arrived early enough, you could get one of those 6 spots for the dentist, for Chestnut Realty, for Carver County Abstracting. The barber went out of business, he's closed down, he retired. But guys, that parking spot that parking lot's used by Si's Restaurant. I can tell you, we all know that for sure. It's owned by the law firm across the street. They do have parking spots in there too. I mean, we've got 2 full-time businesses, there's Chestnut Management and Chestnut Realty out of our office, and Bell Mortgage. Is all out of that building. And when our building was taken, the Chestnut Realty building was taken by the city, we moved 2 buildings away, but from our understanding, we were gonna have parking. It seems like, gosh, I can't believe a city can kind of renege on something like that. Why would you
fair.
take away parking from a business? All of us need it. And we don't need it 4 days a week, we need it 5. I work 7. I'm not a healthy person that way, I work too much, but I like what I do. But all that I'm saying is, think of the guy that's in the handicapped chair, if he uses it that one Wednesday, when he came down to pay his utility, watch him struggle and how he gets out of his vehicle. It's not fair, guys. You have 3 awesome parking spots for handicapped people down here. Those 3 corner spots, whoever thought of that design and putting them in those corners is brilliant. Because how they were located before, it was not as easy to watch them try to open their side doors and get out of with all their equipment. Whoever thought of that really did a great job. And they put them in a great location. And people can then go wherever they want to go downtown. I mean, keeping it a parking spot allows still the farmer's market to be over there, and you got parking. It's still a parking lot, just the same thing that we do for the town event at the end of July.
And this is put on, I mean, it's
put on by
in
the
our
Chaska.
parking lot, the chamber.
Yep.
And the Downtown Business Alliance does partner with them in some ways.
Just to clarify, they said last year that they came to all of our businesses and we all were in agreement with it. I did visit Carver County Abstracting, Nick Moonen. I did visit with Cal, and I did visit with the barber, Glenn. And all 3 of them said, Ken, this proposal was brought to us that it was already approved and already agreed to by the city, and we just had to put up with it. Now we're being notified in advance. We're not okay with it, guys. Please be neighborly, keep parking down here for everybody, keep what the parking lot was built for. It was built for parking. The park would be,
And I think it is important too, just for anyone watching. It was very much brought up, your concerns. It was not that, I mean, at the Downtown Business Alliance meeting, to us even, I believe, that there were
when I talked to
concerns.
Nick, that's what Nick told me, Moonen from
Okay.
Carver County.
Yeah,
And
I
you
mean,
can-
just so that you're aware
And please, I would
too.
say, and I apologize, I don't know your first name.
Michaela.
Michaela, please call Nick Moonen, 952, I won't give his number over the thing, I guess.
Yeah, I
but
think it's
please
probably-
call
he
Nick
signed it.
and clarify that with Nick and make sure I was accurate. Please call Cal and make sure I was accurate, and please call Glenn directly, and please make sure I've made a truthful statement, which I did visit them personally, all three of them.
I think Nate should explain what the public input process was last year.
Yeah, so last year before the farmer's market, before we went forward with it, we did visit all the businesses on the block. We did talk to a representative of each of the businesses on the block. Nick was one of them, Glenn was another. They did express concerns, and the concerns that you're raising now are similar to what was expressed then. We worked through that, and we talked about, how we could try and alleviate some of those concerns. One of the things that we did do was, the signage that you talked about on on 4th Street.
I think
I'm
there
sorry,
was-
on 5th Street.
How many parking spots were there?
It was from the corner to the entrance of the parking lot.
And
So
one
I don't
note
know how
on
many
that,
spots are in there
I
specifically.
personally went out and kept track of that parking and took pictures, and
Okay.
it wasn't used all the time. There was parking stalls that were unused during that time period.
Yeah, and the farmer's market should not have been using that for
They were
loading
using
or-
it
so I'm
sometimes to bring
surprised
things
hear
in and
that.
out, and maybe they moved.
Yeah,
But when you're
I know
there
that the
100%
market
of
manager
the
was
time,
pretty clear with them that they shouldn't be doing that. I know that the market manager was on top of that, so if that happened, it's good to know. I think we can emphasize that again this year.
but could you guys all go out and look at this parking lot on any Wednesday? Just what's today?
Monday.
Today's Monday.
So check it on Wednesday. Think of all those people that are right there on that Wednesday, and this is the winter time.
Can I get a clarifying point? Why is it coming back to the parking lot again in the first place?
So.
Thank
and we
you.
have-
I want to say absolutely thank you. I
Okay,
mean,
I'm gonna listen so I
Okay.
can hear what he has to say over here, because I'm a little behind the ball here.
Yep. So, so the chamber does put it on with the Downtown Business Alliance, and they used to hold it over in the park, and quite frankly, they found that the park location was not real successful for them. The reason it wasn't is it's really sort of away from the businesses that they're trying to bring people to. They also find that the space is too big over there, and that people tend to start on one end of the market, and a lot of them don't make it down to the end of the market. And what they've found is they're having a really tough time attracting vendors, quality vendors, to come to the farmers market when it's not really located in a place that's confined enough to be able to have truly sort of walking aisles and stuff. So when they brought it over here last year, it is true that the reason that it was brought over here is because there was street reconstruction over there. And but one of the things that the chamber found and the Downtown Business Alliance is that it was really successful here, and it ended up bringing in quite a few people into downtown. I know there are some businesses that are expressing concern about it now, but there's other businesses who are very excited about it coming to this location too, because of the number of people it brings downtown. Our plan is that we are going to bring this back to you guys to consider the request to be able to hold it again at the parking lot. We weren't prepared to talk about it tonight. What Ken's talking about is they recently did go around to different businesses to talk to them about their desire to bring it back, to get feedback on it. So the decision hasn't come back to the council to be able to make consideration, but that's just to know what to expect. That's why the chamber is coming back requesting to have it back here, is that they found it was significantly more successful here than it was over there. And they have a concern that if they don't have a place that they can attract good vendors, that it becomes sort of an afterthought for vendors to be a part of it.
Okay. I appreciate
I
it.
think another factor in that, just to add on, and explain some of the other things that we've been discussing, is that one of the criticisms of the farmers market at the park was that lack of interaction between the farmers market and spillover effect to the existing businesses. You could see that as a bad thing or a good thing. I think in this case, what we're trying to do by having it on the plaza space and in the parking lot, have it a little more centrally located and more closer to some business storefronts to try and get that activity going. There are some businesses on the block that in our meetings with them last week when we were going around expressed support and excitement about it because of that interaction that was happening last year. And there are some that did state that they felt like they benefited from it. So it's something that's, there's a negative effect to you as you're explaining and some of the other businesses, but there's others that are also seeing a positive effect from the farmers market and are supportive of it. So that was one of the things that we were trying to promote and draw that connection with the farmer's market by the move and testing that out last year.
What about like day of the week? I mean, is there a compromise by moving the date?
Gosh, guys.
Yeah, I mean.
I guess I don't want to
My
talk about
honest
this right
beg
now.
to you,
It's not even
please move it to
but-
the curling center, guys. It's set up for that. The event you have, that fire and ice, is beyond awesome.
I think what Nate kind of talked about is those businesses that stretch, from, and there's music in the park that night, in Fireman's Park. So there are things going on there. The idea is that it can kind of stretch, and there were a few nights I parked over at Fireman's Park and walked because I was going to both events. But that spillover effect all the way down to First Street, Second Street, out all those businesses that need that walkability, where they need people walking downtown to go into those businesses, that's really, what was really important about this spot.
You're
And
setting-
that may not be, and I can't tell you what people are gonna do, but it's from, analysis perspective, less likely they would venture down that way, or, I completely understand the handicap thing, but I think even these businesses, so we might venture down, see Chestnut Realty, that's a
No, it
Chaska
didn't do
name.
anything for us last year. I mean, pretty much,
Yeah.
it did zero. But it's mainly thinking of others that it does affect, guys. That parking lot's essential for the city of Chaska. Whether you're coming down to pay utility bills, go to the library, and whether it's 2 handicapped people or 3 or 0, that handicapped use is essential. There's not that much handicapped parking in downtown Chaska that's viably easy. That is awesome. And I go into the city of Chaska also because I have rentals in our community, and I'm paying utility bills or helping a tenant connect. And to see the amount of people that are in line in that front desk that parked in that city hall parking lot to pay bills in our community, it's used a lot. And those people are still coming down here, guys. They're still seeing where the city is. And I do understand that the new person that just moved in Glenn's shop, they're probably in agreement, they sell clothing. Don't forget us that have been there a long time. We matter. Guys, we matter. We've been supporting this town for a long time, and we love this community. Don't forget your people that have been here. It's sort of like if all of a sudden we moved it to your parking lot. How would you feel? I mean,
technically
move
in
it to
our
one of the
parking lot.
other city hall parking lots. Take it to one of the other city-owned. Put it down one of the other parking lots. Why does it have to be this one? It could be the one down where the church is now, the movie theater, where the movie theater was. Take a different parking lot. Just please keep this one for city parking so people can pay their utility bills, come to the library. Handicapped accessibility is awesome. Paying your utility bills, going through that little circle. Even that guy which major service that picks up mail goes through there?
There's a FedEx box.
Thank you. The FedEx guy, watch how he struggles to go get the stuff out of there on Wednesdays. It is utilized. That parking lot is majorly important on Wednesdays. Whether you shut us down at noon or you shut us down at 1, it's majorly used. And it also can be used where people can park there and still go to the city square and have the event. And all those vendors can park around that whole park. It's a logical location, the park. It works for people. Please keep it over there. So, and thanks for listening tonight. Whether you vote my way or not, thank you for listening.
I appreciate it. You called me and we talked a little bit, and as I discussed, and I told you, and
Yeah. I care about this community, guys. I care what message it sends to handicapped people, taking it away like, it's only 3 spots. It's important. Tell the handicapped people they are important. Let them know that it's nice that you made easy accessibility for the library. Make sure the handicapped people know they matter. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing.
So one thing we will do is, when we do bring it back, we'll make sure that we provide notice to all the businesses so that they're aware of when it is, and the chamber and the downtown business lines would be a part of that meeting too. So.
Yeah, just kind of some of the feedback that I heard. I think, that we can look at, is there ways to hold on to some of the handicap parking or still provide that accessibility, obviously, then everything like that. All things that I'm sure when we bring it back, we'll look at and we can discuss and appreciate the feedback. Anyone else for visitor presentation tonight? See no one running out of their chairs, so that's a good sign. That moves us to item 6, which is approve previous minutes from February 3rd City Council meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Back and forth. A motion from Councilmember Wong, a second from Councilmember Hubbard. Any questions or comments? If not, all in favor of approving the February 3rd, 2020 City Council meeting, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Approved. Brings us to item 7, consent items. These are items that aren't particularly need to be spoke about, but if you have questions, we can learn more about them together.
I had a question about the amended budget. Amending the budget, G7G. Maintenance town course funding amendment? Is that just equipment purchases? Is that what it was looking for?
Yeah, let me just, this isn't pulling up really good here. There we go. Yeah, so what this is we purchased the equipment with equipment certificates, which is basically bonding for that
Okay.
equipment. And it wasn't reflected in the budget, so we want to make sure it's reflected in there.
Gotcha.
So the actual payments don't start until the next year, but we want to reflect that that
It's in
actual
there.
cost is in there.
Yeah, I was curious about it, so, all right.
Sorry, my computer's really.
No, it's okay. I was like, wow, I'm really throwing a curveball at you.
I'm gonna need Nate to come over and run this for me.
Like the Commodore 64 or something?
I know.
Anyone else? I had 2. I just want a little bit of background and education for myself for 7C, the EAW for public comment for this Pinnacle piece. Just hadn't exposed or seen, I don't think that's come in front of us. I was just kind of curious on what that is and why it's needed.
So, actually, Kevin's the expert, I'll let him talk.
Thank you. Good evening. The EAW is a state regulation based on size of products that are out there. And so based on the number of units in this residential development, which came and received concept approval previously, a portion of that was to have to prepare an EAW because of the size of the project, the number of units in the project. So that's what they're doing. And now we're authorizing to release that EAW out for comments. And once we receive those comments, we'll bring it back and answer all those comments. And then the city council can make a determination on the appropriateness of the EAW and its responses to the questions we might receive. So this is more process-oriented prior to the state allowing us to publish it, which allows all the agencies to see it, requires the city council to actually act on it. So you'll see these once every 3 years. This year you'll see 2 of them that I know of. So kind of a unique calendar that way. But either EAW, Environmental Assessment Worksheets, AUAR, which is area-wide urban something, and then EISs. There's 3 different sizes of projects out there that relate to the same types of regulations based on the size. Could be the size of an industrial building, size of a project, size of a housing residential development, typically are the ones that we would get involved in.
And it goes anywhere from transportation impacts to stormwater impacts to archaeological impacts, if there's like sites, like historic sites, that there might be archaeological things. So it really sort of covers a gamut of environmental stuff.
And all the different regulatory agencies have a chance to weigh in and enlighten the document, which then will come back for your final approval.
And just to clarify, because like the people who might be watching, if they're following along at home, this is the Hammers property.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay, thank you for that. And the other item, I just wanted to say it's been a long journey. Really glad to see 7E for the mountain bikes. I see, I just want to, it started with the park board, and that was when I was on the park board. So I remember having those conversations. I also just want to thank Tim Bosberg and kind of the leadership of kind of continuing to drive that, and Marshall and the work that he's put together that, because it has been quite an interesting process to discover a simple piece of land that seems like it would be a great purpose for use for mountain bike, and who owned what, and who could have rights, and, you know, setting up
It's incredible
nonprofits.
so many
and-
people could own that little property.
Exactly. So, like I said, music to my ears, or, you know, words to my eyes to kind of see that on the consented item, because it's been a long time coming. So just a shout out to that, and appreciation to those who put the hard work in to kind of make that a reality. Any other comments? If not, I would look for a motion to approve consent items.
I make a motion to approve consent items.
Motion from Hubbard? Councilmember Hubbard?
I'll second, unless you would like to second.
Your
it.
second, that's fine.
Okay, I'll second.
I have a second from Councilmember Wong to approve consent items. Any further conversation? Hearing none, all in favor of approving consent items as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Approve, same sign. Consent approved. That brings us to action items 8A, adopt resolution 2020-13, approving the concept plan for Chaska Bluffs, second edition / DDA construction / PC, number 2020-04.
Mayor and Councilmember, the item in front of you tonight is a Southwest Chaska development area north of County Road 44. The proposal is for 17 detached single-family units on approximately 22 acres of land. Liz is here to talk about the concept plan. This is something that was approved or recommended for approval from the Planning Commission, and there is a representative of the applicant in the audience as well.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, members of the council and Mayor Pro Tem. We have a concept plan application in front of you tonight for Chaska Bluffs second edition. So like Matt said, the site is in our southwest Chaska area. More specifically, it's denoted on this aerial exhibit. It does stem off of the current Harvest neighborhood that comes off of Savannah Way and then leads into the development. There was a stub street put in several years ago noted as Deer Trail that this development is extending off of for all of the 17 lots. Chaska Bluffs first edition was just north of that, and that was for the detached villa type lots just to the north there. They have gotten full approvals for that, so you do see construction happening out there for those detached villas. So the remaining portion that was kind of left over is what we're looking at tonight for the concept plan. So to give you a little bit of background on those approvals that have taken place thus far. So it was in April of 2016 that a concept plan came forward for both the Chaska Bluffs first edition and the northern portion of the Harvest neighborhood. So Chaska Bluffs is off of Harrow Cove, and then the northern portion of the Harvest is basically anything on Millstone Drive, Percheron Boulevard, and so forth. So again, we're looking at the remaining area that was kind of left on hold, going through a concept plan process. So again, that area is off of Deer Trail, and there was a decision back in 2016 where they did decide to hold off on this portion to further look at the stormwater needs out there. So that's why it was not looked at as a part of the those original 2016 approvals, is so that they could further evaluate that. And since that time, they've been able to put in that work and move forward with a plan this evening. So the first edition, again, was approved back in December of 2017. That was for the preliminary plat and rezoning. And then ultimately, in March of 2018, the final plat for Chaska Bluffs First Edition was approved. So again, we're looking at a concept plan request tonight. They are proposing 17 single-family lots. This is the overall concept plan for the area. So again, as you can see on this exhibit, Deer Trail stubs off to this point, and they're showing an extension of that road into a cul-de-sac that would access all 17 lots. Like Matt said, the overall acreage of the site, which is everything in green, and the lots shown here is approximately 22 acres in size. However, the total amount of acreage that is being disturbed by both the lots and the stormwater ponding is about 8 acres. So about less than half of the site is actually being developed. The rest of the site will remain preserved and deeded to the city, essentially. About 4 of the acres that they're impacting is open agricultural land that the owners have been cultivating over the years. And then there's about 4 acres that contain wooded areas that they would be impacting. So again, approximately 14 acres, the area that's undisturbed by the development would be deeded to the city for preservation purposes. The lots that they're proposing out here range in size from about 85 to 100 feet in width, and this does differentiate from the other lots out in this area. The Traditions lots range around the 65 to 70 foot wide lots, and then the Chaska Bluffs First Edition, which again was that detached villa product, range in size around 60 feet in width. So they're proposing a much larger lot size here, and again, that was intentional based on kind of the characteristics of the site that they're working with, being that this is a little bit more wooded and has more of a natural edge to it. So they felt that having the larger lot size was more appropriate for the context. Ponding is being shown on both the south and north sides of the site, a smaller one on the north side and a larger one on the south side. So we don't have a lot of details on kind of the operations of this, but as we move into preliminary submittal, we'll have more information in terms of calculations and drainage and so forth to kind of work off of. One of the couple comments that we had in our report is based on kind of the access to these ponds. We did note that some of these access points seem rather large and dissect through private lots, side yards, which is not a recommendation from staff, as it kind of puts an unneeded burden on both city crews but also private owners in terms of our crews accessing these areas. So we've provided a couple comments in terms of how to address that in the preliminary, hoping to sanction these off as their own outlots owned by the city, and then also show locations that could be less invasive and long compared to what they're showing right now. So in particular, this one on the north side appears to be something that could be looked at in a different location for a much or a less invasive location. And then in terms of wooded steep slopes, we did do a site walk late last year to delineate the edges of that. So they have shown that on their plans and are planning to stay out of that and meet the setbacks. There was one comment on, again, the access point into the pond that would have to be revised to show outside of our applicable setbacks for the wooded steep slope. So I also want to note that before they landed on this concept plan and layout, they did explore a different option, which was 24 lots. Again, this was shown during the 2016 approvals. It wasn't approved or anything like that, but it was shown as a possible exploration during that time. And it's important in noting, based on kind of where they started and where they are now in terms of the concept plan. So again, they showed a 24-lot layout, an extension off of Deer Trail that showed 2 cul-de-sacs as opposed to 1. And these, again, basically went to the limits of the wooded steep slope edge on both sides, as it was determined at that time, but was still kind of a question. So they showed a much larger footprint compared to what you see now. They did decide to opt for a more modest plan that you saw earlier so that they could preserve more trees, but also provide adequate stormwater needs and utilities to the area. Once you extend out this direction, it did require a lift station, which was something that we wanted to avoid. So again, they landed on a much more modest plan, the 17-lot plan, to avoid a lift station and preserve a larger area of trees too. So here's an exhibit kind of showing those differences between what they're proposing now compared to what was proposed before. So again, the extension into the treat area is not as great compared to what they initially explored. Here's another exhibit showing the concept plan, a little bit more simplified for better viewing. But the road extension is about 665 feet in length, if anyone needs numbers. They are proposing sidewalks on both sides of the streets, which is customary for public streets. As I noted before, we've shown kind of where they could access differently for the ponding on the north side, which would be much less invasive and be more of a logical point of access. Another thing to note, the bluff areas are definitely a huge amenity in the community, and not only will these maintenance accesses be able to access the ponds, but they would also be able to provide public access to the bluff areas in the rear here. We know a lot of people use this area today within these neighborhoods, so being able to maintain that access for them is just another sweet touch as a part of those pond accesses. And lastly, when we walked the site, we did note a couple dump areas within the bluff areas, which is not an uncommon thing that we run by within the bluff areas. They're just convenient points of access for people to dump whatever they want, but we do call them out during these planning stages and make sure they're areas that do get cleaned up as a part of this overall development. So we'll be working with the developer to figure out a plan. They'll have to address that in their preliminary submittal as well, but at this point, we've called them out as areas to look after. In terms of the tree preservation, that's kind of the hot topic with this development. As opposed to some of the other areas that weren't as immersed into very wooded areas, this one's a little bit different. It does have a very natural edge of wooded areas, so being able to capitalize on that as much as possible has always been kind of our comments back to the developer, and hence why they've come back with a more modest plan. So what they have proposed for tree preservation is 42 significant trees will be removed as a part of this plan. And when we say significant, it's trees that are 12 inches caliber or more. And the majority of those 42 trees, they are cottonwoods, box elders, and aspens. So not typically what we call desirable trees to save per se. And 12 of those are some oaks that average out at 15 inches in caliber. And then in comparison, they are in the areas that are not encompassed by wooded steep slopes, which are by ordinance already preserved. So in addition to that, they are preserving 85 significant trees, and a majority of those are oaks. So given kind of the comparison value here, the areas that they are impacting are not what we would consider the priority areas, which are more so around the perimeter of the site, and kind of in this grove area here is where we find more of the significant valuable trees. And we didn't really note any clusters either that were important in trying to save. So again, much of the tree preservation efforts are happening along the perimeter of these lots. So again, anything that falls outside of the lots for trees will be dedicated to the city. So the city will have perpetual ownership and preservation of those areas. There were a couple areas where these trees that are planned to be saved kind of encroach into the rears of some of these properties. We would either recommend that the lot line be modified to exclude those trees, or if cutting off the property line is too much to ask, then we would ask that a conservation easement be placed over the ones that are not within city ownership. So again, something that we'll work on between this step and the next one. Another thing to note is DDK Construction is the applicant tonight, but they also own their own construction business where they do home building as a part of their operations. At this time, they've noted that they'll probably be the prime builder out there, and they plan to do custom build homes, so these aren't kind of the cookie cutter ones that you see out there today. They would be treating each lot differently in terms of what their clients want. There is a possibility that they may sell off some of the lots to different builders who are also in the custom build industry. But at this time, DDK is the prime builder out there. So with that, we are asking you to make a motion tonight on the concept plan to adopt resolution number 2020-13, which is approving the concept plan for Chaska Bluffs Second, and then based on the conditions and stipulations that are based within that document. Happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, we have Dave Picorni here to answer some for the applicant and developer.
Some custom built homes out there will look gorgeous. That sounds good.
The only comment is just that it's really nice to see a lower density, because we've seen a lot of like mid-density stuff along there, so it's nice to see a little variety in terms of the makeup. You know, and we do talk a lot about how we try to like find affordable housing too, and I know there's other areas that are set for a higher density utilization, and there's other projects going on that we're trying to, you know, secure lower income, but it's also nice to see once in a while, you know, something on the upper end of the spectrum too.
Definitely.
I think it's a good tie back to the ultimate goal we've had is 30% affordable, 30% mid-range, and 30% upper range. So we really have to have a focus on all those housing types to be able to meet that.
I will note, just for, everyone may know this already, but the planning commission, there were some neighbors' concerns,
Yes.
particularly with a lot that looked out into the wooded area now and was concerned about view. I think he was like the third one down and everything like that. And so I think, I appreciated him showing up at that meeting. I think there was another individual who was worried about runoff and stormwater. And, I actually thought the planning commission did a good job talking about typically actually having it developed is actually better for stuff like that, because then you have to be planful for it versus just kind of letting nature figure out its course, because water always will take the most convenient way, which isn't always the most convenient way for landowners, right? So I just point that out because I thought that was brought up, and I didn't see anyone that they didn't. It's tough to come to 2 meetings if your topic is heard. So I just thought I'd share that.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that.
Any other comments? As spiriting my inner Mark here, I would just say, remind everyone who's watching, concept plan, early stages, It's really preliminary and final still coming forth. So I feel like I need to echo that. Mark would be the point where Mark would say that.
was
right?
good.
I feel like I've sat here close enough just to remind everyone. So still pretty early, the concept. So no questions here. I don't know if the applicant wants to come on and say anything more. He's moving, so that must be a good sign.
I'm Dave Picorni, and I represent DDK Construction on this property. Well, again, I think as Liz said, this is one that, even though it's a relatively small piece, we've looked at a number of different layouts on the property. I think it's one of the first I've ever seen Kevin give me a layout. So, but I do think we've come up with a solution through a lot of talk that is really a good solution. One of the things that Liz didn't mention, well, she did mention that about the very first plan would have required a lift station, and that was one of our joint goals between the developer and the staff, is we were looking for a plan where we didn't have to put in a lift station. And the compromise here is that to avoid the lift station, one, we had to lose lots and we had to do a lot of fill. So the road, even though it's still going to be dropping a fair amount, it's not dropping as much as it does today. What that did then is it really got us focused, given the grades, well, doing, for example, 65 or 70-foot lots really just won't work because of the grade transition from one lot to another, and that's when we started getting bigger. And at least at this point, we've convinced the landowners that it is possible to do large lot subdivisions still in Chaska. I really don't know when the last subdivision with these sized lots has been through the city. It's been a long time. And, but we do think that there is an opportunity to do custom homes in this development, because the development's turned out, I think, very nice, but it is, well, it's all national builders, okay? I mean, nice national builders, I'm not being critical, but this will be the only opportunity, at least to date, where you could come in and custom build a home. And actually is the one, and it's really a minor comment, but one of the conditions says all the exterior will be LP siding. I think you meant it won't be vinyl, right? I mean, if we come in and it's all brick, or if it's hardy board, you don't care.
Right. Hardy board, LP, it's the same.
Exactly, LP or something better, because we might see brick homes in this subdivision. So again, we understand all the conditions, we don't have any issues with them. We will probably be back later this spring, summer with the preliminary plat. Our goal would be to get far enough along so that we can do some of the site grading yet this summer. We just would like to get it done before the whole subdivision's done. I expect we won't be looking to sell homes until the summer of '21. So that's kind of our schedule. We'll be back.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other further questions or comments? All right. If not, I'd entertain a motion to adopt resolution number 2020-13, concept plan for Chaska Bluffs 2 based on the conditions.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Hatfield,
I'll second.
second by Councilmember Wong. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of approving to adopt resolution number 2020-13, approving the concept plan for Chaska Bluffs second based on the conditions therein, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion adopted. That brings us to action item 8B, adopt resolution 2020-14, preliminary site and building plan for Qualitech, Inc.
Mayor Pro Tem and council members, the item in front of you tonight is for consideration of expansion of Qualitech. Now, Qualitech actually has two facilities in our industrial parks. This is the one that's actually in our PV industrial park, which is, the other one is in our Crosby industrial park. This, I think this one deals more with human food and the other one deals more with animal food. We're excited to see them in proposing to expand their building. They've been a great business in the industrial park. Boy, Crosby Park was probably back in the 70s, so a long time that they've been in the community. So Liz is here to talk through the preliminary site and building plan, and I do know we have applicants here too. And this is coming from the Planning Commission with a recommendation of approval.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, members of the council and Mayor Pro Tem. Like Matt said, we're looking at a preliminary site and building plan this evening, specifically for Qualitech at their location at 150 Jonathan Boulevard North. So here's a very zoomed out perspective of where that site is. It's in our northern industrial park, like Matt said, right off of Jonathan Boulevard, that ends in a cul-de-sac. They're right at the end there.
Kitty corner for a water tower.
Yes, good reference. So here's a more zoomed in perspective. So it's basically surrounded on all sides by industrial today. Its eastern border abuts the city of Chanhassen. However, they also have an industrial development slated for just the east of them. So everything that surrounds them is basically in the same context that they're proposing. So Qualitech, this was formerly known as Nutritech back when they came in for their original approvals. They specialize in food processing and production of plant and animal nutrition products. The building that we're looking at tonight, the original approvals were done in July of 1985, and that was for a site and building plan approval. And at that time, they approved a 45,000 square foot building, which is basically what's there today. They also showed on that plan a 36,000 square foot building addition on the eastern side. However, they decided to halt on approvals for that so that parking could further be evaluated. So again, we're looking at the building addition now, which requires our site and building plan process, a preliminary and a final. So we're at the very first step here. So the preliminary site and building plan encompasses a request for a 26,750 square foot building addition. They're also planning to add 2 loading docks to the site and then the expansion of their parking lot. They're in an industrial zoning district, so it's consistent with that and the comprehensive plan out there. The site that they're working with is just a little under 5 acres in size. As you can see on this exhibit, the existing building is 45,000 square feet in size. Back when they got their original approvals, they were required to put in a 75 stall parking lot, which is existing today. So it's both on the western side and northern sides of the building footprint. There's 2 existing loading docks kind of on that northeast corner of the site. They have 2 ingress and egress points onto Jonathan Boulevard North. One accesses kind of the main parking lot to the west there, and then the other accesses additional parking stalls, but they're loading dock area as well. And just to note, there's a 30-foot wide drainage and utility easement on the eastern side here, which they're not planning to impact, so that'll remain in place even with the work that they're doing on site. So here's the site plan with the building addition added on there. So again, it's just east of the original footprint, so they're planning to stay pretty seamless with kind of that same footprint. They're just extending off to the east there. The added parking lot is shown on the north and east sides of this building addition. And in terms of where they land for a parking count with the added square footage, they are required to meet 77 stalls for parking code. They are only constructing 34 parking stalls, and then they are showing 46 as proof of parking. So again, we never ask that they construct all of that parking as a part of any building addition. We only want them to construct what's really needed for their business. So we just ask that they show the rest that they don't need as proof of parking on a separate exhibit. So they've been able to show actually 3 more stalls than what's required for this building addition. So they more than meet the requirements for parking on this site. The 2 loading docks are also being added to kind of where that loading dock area is. They're just extending it to 2 more doors, and kind of the turnaround area is being extended away as a little bit too, to kind of accommodate the turning movements in there as well. There's a pretty significant grade difference on the north side, so in order to accommodate some of the expansion area of the loading dock and the proposed parking lot, they will have to construct a retaining wall that ranges in size or in height from 3 to 7 feet. So again, more of what you see for the retaining wall will be facing the actual building, so it won't be facing any of the adjacent properties. This is our proof of parking exhibit, so it kind of rounds off the eastern parking lot and then adds additional stalls along the north side here. So again, in terms of parking count out there, they're more than adequate for parking stalls. And then here's a truck turning plan. We always ask that these are included with added loading dock areas. One unique thing is the loading dock is on kind of the front side of the building, which isn't very typical or what we would encourage in industrial buildings. We try to hide them as much as possible. However, if you read any of the previous approvals, they were kind of constrained with kind of the characteristics of the site, and the only option was really putting it on the north side. So they did do some berming on the north side facing the street. I'll go to our landscape to kind of mitigate the view that you see from the public right-of-way. So not only are they providing landscaping for the building addition requirements, but they're also restoring their existing landscaping out there. So that's why this plan is pretty hefty, is they're planning to replace and install new plantings out there to kind of fill in the site. So in terms of the screening, they'll be keeping the existing evergreens on the north side there and filling in where they can. They have to revise a couple plantings to be within their own property lines, but other than that, they're doing a really good job of trying to fill in where they can and also provide some buffering on the eastern side that faces Chanhassen. And here's a photometric plan if anyone likes to delve into the details here, but they meet our lighting ordinance in terms of cast off and glare, and then the fixtures as well meet our lighting ordinance. In terms of the extension or the building addition that's planned, they are planning to do precast concrete panels for the building addition. One thing that we like to note that will be a difference between the new and the old is that the older or original building had concrete stems as a part of the overall structure, and that building mechanism was done in years past as a structural necessity for the building. But since we've kind of navigated away from those building mechanisms now and it's not needed, that is one thing that you will not see as a part of this building addition. Again, it was something that was put in place as a structural requirement, and given contemporary materials are able to withstand roof loads and so forth without that mechanism, that's why we're not seeing that as a part of this building addition. But they will be matching the same color as the existing building and same material and carry that through so that it will, again, blend in as seamless as it can with the existing. And then the height will remain the same as well, so they're not proposing anything additional from what you see out there. And here's a floor plan if anyone needs to reference that. But other than that, they've done a really good job of preparing a preliminary site and building plan application for us, and much of the comments that we have should or will be addressed by the final submittal, which they hope to do hopefully in the next month. So we are asking you to make a motion to adopt resolution number 2020-14, which is approving the preliminary site and building plan for Qualitech at 150 Jonathan Boulevard North, and then based on the conditions that are listed within that document. Happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, we have a team of applicants here as well. It's always good when there's no
I
question.
just had one like random question, and I was looking over your architectural plans. I was looking at your locker rooms. Is it that you guys employ more men than women? Because there were more lockers. It's just more of an informational question, I guess. You counted lockers.
It's good attention to detail.
Not, it's more of an curious mind question.
So my name is Joe Wagner. I'm project manager with ISG, the architectural firm, engineering firm that's doing the project. I can probably touch on that a little bit. Basically, Qualitech currently has more men working at the facility than women. And also with the addition, they're adding the 3 process labs, production labs. It will add a few additional staff, but the majority of the new addition is also warehouse space, so there's not a lot of need for a lot of additional hires that will come out of this. So we're basing the lockers based off of their current needs and their necessity. The restrooms, showers, that type of thing is all based off of what's required by code, but lockers are based off of what we're hearing from them.
Right.
You answered my question. I was curious about expansion. What's the need for the expansion? Is it hires? Is it warehouse space? I think you kind of touched with that. Sounds like it's more warehouse space
Right.
piece. And then the other question I had, I think this is probably an obvious question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. It's going to be one seamless building, right? It's not, they're going to connect, the wall's going to go down
Yeah.
in between.
Correct. If you look at the expansion drawings,
I was like,
She found it, yep. It clearly says, right?
I found it. I
it's-
looked at your
her
architecture.
Well, she was counting the locker. She noticed it says
counting
existing
lockers.
wall will be removed.
right.
sorry.
So where the production space is here, this adjoining wall is the sister wall between the existing building and the new. What we're proposing to do is remove probably from this corner to this column line, the existing precast tees from floor up to roughly 21 feet. And that will then allow forklifts, that type of thing to get back and forth between the two spaces, as well as in this area as well will be opened up, and we'll use structural methods to support the existing, but allow continuity between the two buildings.
Quick question, this stuff, just curiosity. So why is there a 4'2" gap between each of the process labs? Why don't share walls?
So also with the process labs, in those controlled environments, very similar to a clean room, there will be HVAC. It'll push from one side of the process lab to the other side of the process lab. And in between those is where the ductwork will go down and will be utilized as kind of where the shaft or duct space is between labs.
Cool, thank you.
Other questions? You're good. Thank you for continuing to look at Chaska for expansion.
Okay.
That's good.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks for
Thank you.
listening.
Bring it back to the council. Any other comments or questions? If not, I would look for a motion to adopt Resolution 2020-14, approving the preliminary site and building plan for Qualitech Inc. at 150 Jonathan Boulevard.
So I'll move to adopt resolution 2020-14, approving the preliminary sign building plan for Qualitech.
Motion from Councilmember Wong,
Second.
second by Councilmember Hubbard. Additional discussion?
I did enjoy looking at the 1985 documents. That's an additional comment.
We didn't ask who was alive here in 1985.
I
We
was
weren't gonna,
alive.
we weren't
I
gonna.
was very young, so.
Nate, maybe on the edge.
I was 1 year old.
I was 1 year old. You were not born, right?
I was not alive.
What was interesting is I recognize quite a few of the names in that document from
yeah.
way back when, like Kevin.
Yeah. Hey.
All right, we do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor of adopting resolution 2020-14, approving the preliminary site and building plan for Qualitech, say aye.
Hi.
Opposed, same sign. Adoption passes. All right, bring us to, thank you.
Thank you.
Bring us to 9A, bills. Anyone have questions?
I might.
All right.
I have a mic level of questions as well.
Wow.
Whoa.
Ooh, I thought it was,
Up the game.
I'm just gonna wait till you guys go through and see if you,
It's like battle royale
well,
with questions.
who, did you have a preference
who
in
has
who
the
goes?
least amount of questions.
He can go first.
Okay.
Okay. So, we're going to say ladies first.
Oh, no, we're good.
All right.
Okay,
You got,
so-
you got it.
All right. Let's see. So page 1. Now, there's one for Shakopee Valley Ford, but not specifically related to that item, but just in general, it's a general question about who does repairs in vehicles for the police department and fire department? Are they, do they share a mechanic? Do they each have their mechanics? Or do we consolidate by like leveraging like a common mechanic? Because obviously we have parts that are specific to,
Yeah, we have one vehicle maintenance division. It's part of our Public Works Department. And we have 4 employees in there that basically take care of the fleet of our entire city and not just specific by department.
nice,
Yep.
very cool. And then page 2 for Bay West.
If I have a question on page 1, do you want me to go?
Go for it.
Or should we go by page? This AARP 4-hour Chaska Lodge drive.
Okay, here we go.
It's very
That's-
first one.
The very first one.
Yeah.
I figured it was some sort of activity.
Maybe it is, and
No, I think this is, we do the classes up there for ARP. It's the defensive driving classes.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think I was just reading it and I was like, I don't understand the words. Okay,
Yeah.
that was my only question on that page.
Page 2 for Bay West LLC. This one's, it indicated it was for Hotspots Consulting, so the question is what was carrying over since, we obviously, there's already something on that site now.
Yeah, so it takes several months. That was a contaminated site as determined by the state, and it takes several months after that process for the state to take that off of there. So Bay West is the environmental company we worked with on the site. They're just closing that site up with the state. Important to note here that when we closed on purchasing the property, we had the seller put dollars in escrow to go towards this work. So we pay for it, but we have dollars from escrow that we get to reimburse ourselves for that.
So is it possible that it could fall through and not close out for some strange reason?
No.
Okay.
Because the reason it wouldn't is because they go throughout the entire process, and you have to submit things to be able to get those approvals as it's going through. If there was an issue with it, they would have told us way back when.
Yep. I mean, it just was one of those curious, sometimes there's the administrative thing that kind of doesn't match and.
Yeah.
Okay. Then page 2, the one for, the item for Blue Tarp Financial, the renewed membership. So no, Blue Tarp Financial, when I Google it, was they did purchasing on behalf of other organizations.
Yep.
I was wondering how our relationship works with them.
So this one is particularly with Northern Tool and Equipment. So Northern Tool, we get a ton of stuff through there for municipal services and a lot of the equipment around the city. We get free shipping and discount on merchandise if we go through Blue Tarp as opposed to just buying it directly through Northern Tool.
So basically, it's kind of a discount program for us. Okay.
Yep.
And then pages 6 to 7, there's 2 items for Quest, which is kind of also ironic because Quest is now part of CenturyLink, right?
Yep.
Still says Quest, but why is it broken into 2 separate groups of payments?
So one is more of the just general service that we have at our enterprise fund facilities, so like community center, curling center, so more of the phone service they have there. The second one is more of our long distance coverage. Long distance is done through Illinois and the other stuff is done through Colorado. So they invoice separately for them.
Gotcha. All right. Page 11, there was one item for Floyd Total Security. And this one was for lock repairs keys for like, it looks like the Power 30 or something. And there was, this one, I thought I saw something like at least a month or 2 ago for being a lock replacement, but maybe I'm thinking of something else.
Yeah, no, this one was actually for 3 park shelters. This is unfortunate, but this isn't this is not the most uncommon thing in the world because we have a lot of vandalism at our facilities, and so we're pretty constantly changing out locks and things like that to sort of keep ahead of that. So.
Gotcha. So the page 17, there's an item for Kennedy and Graven Chartered for City Square West redevelopment. That's obviously, that's a project that's in play right now, but it's not a group we work with commonly. That's just more I see too often.
Yep, so Kennedy and Graven is our economic development attorneys, and so we use them for any economic development activity or establishing TIF districts, things like that.
Okay. Page 19, there's an item for Mansfield Oil Company, specifically the Cold Pro additive, and it was kind of interesting because the Cold Pro additive was, like more than either the diesel or the dyed diesel or the unleaded.
Yeah, so the Cold Pro additive is actually a third separate type of fuel. So we have diesel, we have unleaded, and then the Cold Pro additive is what's used. It's a lighter fuel that the snowplows use during the winter months, so doesn't get as sludgy. And so you'll see that during the winter months, you'll see that on our bills, and the reason it's more is because it's what we use the most of during the winter.
Just by the demand-based economics of it's higher cost because everyone wants to use.
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily a higher cost. It's just that we use more of
We
it.
just use more to the
Yeah.
volume.
Once we move into the spring months, then you'll see more diesel being used.
Okay, so just a shift of what our usage
Yep.
is. Gotcha. On page 20, there's an item for Mike McGuire. This is a rebate, and now this is an interesting one because it's a solar panel rebate, and I knew we had different rebate programs for homeowners, things like that, but I was wondering about, we can talk a little bit about the rebate program around solar and what this is
Yep.
applicable to.
So basically, we are required by state statute to have a conservation improvement program where we have to both spend 1.5% of our revenues towards energy reduction, and we have to actually demonstrate that we've reduced our energy by 1.5%. And so basically, we use it as a way to, it's how we provide free light bulbs to people at events. It's one that we use as an economic development tool with businesses when they're going through and they might be putting in variable drive motors as opposed to single drive ones, so that saves energy and they can get rebates on it. But it's also available to homeowners if they have significant decrease in their energy usage. So the most common ones that we see would be things like energy efficient air conditioners or things like that. But sometimes you see somebody puts on solar panels, well, they take away a huge load when they do that. So this particular person invested about $30,000 into this, and so then he's eligible for rebate on our program towards that.
Wow, that's quite a bit, big investment there. But
Do
when
they
the-
need approval doing something like that on their house or anything?
Building permits.
A building permit, yeah.
Okay,
And then there's some electric permits too in terms of interconnection agreements and stuff like that, because
They basically have to sell onto our grid, So it's not like the energy is produced there and actually goes directly into their home. It actually goes out onto our grid, and we have to buy it. And there's a purchase agreement. And the reason being is because they still rely on our electricity, and so they need to be able. But also, we don't want people installing things that could screw up our system either. And so the interconnection agreement basically places some responsibility back on them for how they actually connect into our system, and then how we disconnect them if there was an issue.
So if I understand what you just said correctly, that means that they're always feeding our grid. They're always feeding out to the grid from the solar,
If it's producing.
if it's producing. And if there's no production, it's nothing, right?
Yep.
But then that means they're always drawing from the grid for their own power. So the irony is that if there's a power outage, they could actually have no power like all their other neighbors, even though their electricity, or their solar's generating electricity.
Yeah,
unless they store it to battery.
unless they store it to battery.
Right,
Yep.
so no, so then that was my other question I was gonna ask. So if someone's like on a Tesla Powerwall or something, could they just charge to their battery?
They could.
And
yeah.
then, would that also potentially be an option to like save them from hooking up to our
well, you said
grid?
it was mandated, right?
Well, they always want to, because,
Because they make money, right?
And there's no
yeah,
other
it's
sun.
part of the
There's no
economics
sun,
for,
yeah.
it's part of the economics for how they make the solar panels try to pay for themselves.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so there's the economic side of it. If they didn't do that, then it would be completely a cost to them.
Yeah, we're cost savings
Yeah.
because they're not purchasing any
Yeah.
electricity, so.
But there's
Right,
also,
not used as much.
there's just not enough, the battery technology is really expensive right now. And so to be able to get enough battery capacity to be able to, people just aren't, unless they're off in the middle of the woods and don't have easy access to a distribution system, they're typically hooking up.
Gotcha.
Is there like tiered pricing with them, like peak and off-peak or anything? Or
No.
is it's just a set?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, because we talked about in the past, like, tiered pricing for like EVs at some point.
Yeah, that's gonna be an interesting one, because you typically have tiered pricing to be able to encourage people to do their charging on non-peak times. But the more electric vehicles that we get, the more our system could potentially get overloaded if everybody's trying to do it at night. And so it's actually something that our power agency is looking at now, is how do we incent people to do it at the right times? Because it's just as much of an importance for us, it's a cost savings for the people who are doing it, but it's just as important for us because, let's say 75% of the people in town had an electric vehicle, and if they all charged it at once, that would be an issue. And so, you're trying to get people to do it, incent them to do it when you want them to.
Because, I mean, the electric vehicle, like, I guess fill-up model is like more like a cell phone than a traditional car, right? I mean, you come home, like, before you go to bed, or when you come home, you park the car, plug it in, then walk inside, and then unplug it before you go to work in the morning, right? It's kind of more closer to that model, which means that, at any time during that, depending upon what the vehicle's charged, they could be sucking down juice to refill the battery, right? It's so it kind of introduced some interesting.
Yeah, it's not that big of an issue now because there's just not enough people to have the vehicles, but it will be an issue not just for Chaska, but for other electric utilities in the future. But it's ironic, it's probably the biggest growth we'll see in electric usage too, is through electric vehicles.
And it's an opportunity, it's a revenue opportunity.
Yeah, it's absolutely an opportunity. The trick will be, how do we not have to build our systems so robust that economic opportunity is lost by infrastructure costs?
Right, exactly. Okay, good stuff. Then let's see, page 25, there's one for governmentjobs.com. And so the question is that, this is, it seems like there's a pretty big chunk of change. It's 11,000 or so. It seems like quite a bit. Is it for recruiting? Is this mandated we use the site? And does it get us the diversity of pool of applicants we're looking for?
Yeah, it's actually not related to that. It's actually related to a applicant tracking system. We currently do not have one that's that much better than just doing it manually. And it's starting to become a real issue with you think about the number of part-time employees that we bring on during the summer, rehiring. We have quite a few, with our maintenance division and attrition and all that type of stuff. We've just found that without having a good applicant tracking system, we just don't have the staff to be able to keep up with keeping those employment processes rolling. So but the system does give us some more capabilities to do more targeted recruiting, which there is added benefits to that too.
And was this one preferred because it lends itself to government versus,
Yeah, Nate's been working
I
directly
don't
with
know if
this
you looked
one.
at other ones.
Yeah, yep. So it's called NeoGov.
Oh, okay.
And so
Yeah,
that's a pretty common.
That's pretty much everyone.
Yeah, a
uses
pretty
it.
common applicant tracking system, job posting system for government positions. And so for anyone who's got an interest in job searching in the government world, they've encountered NeoGov. The nice thing about it is that applicants can build and they can build their own profile in there, load up their resume, and it makes applying a whole lot easier for folks who are, already got that all situated and things. So
And with the scoring requirements that we have to make sure that we're counting veterans' preference points and other thing, it just does a much better job of being able to score those applications when we're going through the process.
Cool.
Yep.
Page 33, there's one for Shafis, SHAFIIS, and it's for TC scorecards. I'm wondering what that's for.
Yep, so we're gearing up for the golf season. So that's the scorecards for the town course for the year. And that's a company we've used for a number of years for that.
Sounds good. And then page 35, Verizon Wireless. Do we have, and this is this is specifically related to the cradle points. Because the cradle points are basically, it's like a router. So the question is that, why this particular router? Why is it called out as a line item? Because normally it's just, here's a high-speed router or like something for fiber or whatever. And then how is this, I guess, how or why is this called out as a separate thing and why is it different?
Yeah, so it's part of our SCADA system. So our SCADA system basically manages our utilities. So it warns us when the water tower is too low or there's a outage somewhere. And so the employees have handheld units that need to go back into a cradle point for downloading of data. So that's why it's specifically called out.
All right, that's all I've got.
Did you take all yours?
Nope.
Oh, all right.
So I stopped interrupting him, so we have to go back to page 3.
I just reloaded the document, it was faster.
I think it might be a better idea. That's a really good idea.
Oh, wait, is everyone through? For Mount Pleasant Cemetery, the Bolton and Mank, is that seems like a big amount for like,
That is a part of the Hammers property that was being developed adjacent to it. We know that some of our burials are not located inside Mount Pleasant. Historically, that has happened for a variety of reasons. And so we had to get some ground penetrating radar to find those folks and map them out so that when they came through and did their grading, everybody was okay.
This isn't the only cemetery in town that's an issue, by the way.
as long as those,
Historically, if you were baptized or
Right.
you committed suicide, you
Or-
couldn't
yeah.
be buried in a cemetery.
Yeah. So they're buried.
That used to be an all
on the
churches
outskirts.
cemetery previously, before it was a city cemetery, and so people would be buried close by to their family, but not inside. And with development happening on that north and west side, we wanted to make sure that we knew what was happening over there.
Sometimes the burials
something
were
every time.
about a half a mile to the south and west of Senator, no, I'm just joking.
Oh, I didn't get it, but okay.
I got it. Whatever I thought.
Page 5 to Carver County, it looks like some election management, and is that just for,
That's for the upcoming
okay. It just,
Super Tuesday.
that's what it does.
Yeah,
I
so
didn't know if we were
we-
like buying a machine or something, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, so we have to go through and actually, we work with them for the softwares for the
Oh,
system.
okay.
Yeah.
So
and this is
everybody in the county uses the same software.
Not just for Super Tuesday, but there's the other two elections.
other
that
ones.
are gonna
Oh,
happen.
okay.
There's a primary for statewide, and then there's also the general election that'll happen later this year, so.
Which actually, so this year, there's 3 that we have to host. Typically, there's only 2. So it is an additional step this year from what it was in the past.
Okay, thank you. And then on page 9, to Dakota Supply Group, there was streetlight conversion and then streetlight conservation, like both for the same amount. I didn't know what that even was.
Yeah, so we're converting our street lights in town to LED. And so
Okay, so
basically, in an ideal world, we do it all at once, but we only have so many staff, so we're sort of doing it as time allows. And so they've been taking some of the slow time in the season to do different pockets of town. So you're gonna continue to see, the slower the time, the more bills you'll see.
Got it.
But their goal is to try to, by the end of 2020, to have all the streetlights converted over in town, which is pretty significant savings to us from electricity, and the lights last a lot longer.
How much are we talking about in terms of, because I know because they run 24/7, so it's quite, and they're pretty hefty lights too.
Yeah.
How much, what do you think, what is like the approximate savings we're seeing like per signal, for example?
Oh, boy. Well, it's not on the signals that we're switching over.
Oh, you mean
This is on
These
streetlights.
are streetlights. Okay,
Yeah.
so these are the ones that are like, okay, so like they're replacing those argon lights or?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's significant enough where Brian Jung was excited. That's about as detailed as I can get, but I'll find out.
Yeah. it's wondering.
I will comment, my neighborhood recently in the last month was affected, and I got messages from my neighbors like, the lights look much better, it's a much better light, brighter, not yellow, more whitish.
Yeah.
Right, so, although it saves money, it's well received in neighborhoods for just being better light in general.
I've heard mixed things. I've heard some neighbors say that it was like it's harsher light because if you're driving, then it tends to not be as friendly with night vision, for example. You know?
Yeah, I've heard it both ways too. You'll see most cities are gonna be going over to it though, just because of the energy savings. I particularly have seen, your neighborhood looks a ton different from 212 now. When you drive by compared to what it was before, so it's a noticeable difference.
And then I think I only have one more, it's on 33, so scroll away there.
Oh, can we stop at 21 first?
Of course.
Sorry. I think I have one pass that they didn't cover. And that was the driving training for firefighters. Just was curious about that.
Yeah, so that's recurring training that we do for firefighters that they need to do to basically train to drive the equipment.
Okay. Just curious. Didn't know if that was like everybody goes through that or if it's just, oh wait, it's just particular ones that want to drive, right? Or that all go through, right? There's
yeah.
some that do and don't.
I think they all go through the training
I
though.
think they have to,
Yeah.
there's a special certification to drive like the fire trucks.
Yeah.
And ambulances and stuff, yeah.
I remember that. from-
Well, it's also like.
I want to get
Right
certified,
along.
but they won't let me, so.
It's because for a lot of those vehicles, there's
For good reason.
There's also, in addition to certification, just to driving them during emergency situations, there's also like accident avoidance training and stuff for those. They do it up at Minnesota State Highway Research Facility, and they said like watch a fire truck trying to do a emergency lane change. You see it up on 2 wheels and going sideways. It's pretty interesting.
Sounds intense.
Years ago, we had a fire
is.
truck, it was actually at our fire chief and our fire marshal flipped in a pumper. And those two, and then one of our public works employees too, was inside of it. So, yeah, they are top heavy. And so they need to really know how to handle those as they're going.
like ladder trucks too.
Yep.
Okay, 33, the last one for title mark, the shallow property fees. That just made me curious if there was anything happening.
Nothing proactive
Okay.
happening. Yeah, I mean, we've been indicated that they may want to take us to court on that, but we have received no notice, official notice that that's the case.
Okay. That was all mine.
That's it for me.
Okay.
That's all I had too. So I'd entertain a motion and pay the bills.
So before that, I'm just gonna make a note that because like, I work for an employee-owned company, and my client is actually Cargill, and Cargill has a bill on here. So just to avoid any illusion of impropriety, I'm going to recuse myself from the vote.
You can, if you want to, recuse yourself for just that bill. You could just note that out front.
That would be fine, then I'll note that I'll recuse myself.
Yeah,
from
we'll
just-
put that in the minutes that you're recusing for just that bill.
Yeah, because I mean, and even though I have like no relationship with anyone who's in that part of the building or that part of the organization, nor do I do anything there, I'll just recuse myself just to make it clean.
Okay.
Yep.
Good note.
I learned something.
Motion to pay the bills.
Motion by Councilmember Hatfield.
Second? Oh, because
No,
Nope,
go
not
ahead.
here. Second by Councilmember Wong to pay the bills. Nate, will you call roll, please?
Yes. Councilmember Hatfield?
Yes.
Councilmember Hubbard?
Yes.
Councilmember Wong?
yes, with exception.
Yes. And Mayor Pro Tem Kura?
Yes. Thank you. All right, bills are paid. That brings us to other business. We will start on that end of the table with Councilmember Hatfield.
I can't remember all the weeks in between. I think the most notable was the Engage event, which was the second Marnitas table. I only got to be there at the very beginning, but I thought it was a really good turnout again. Good food, and for the conversation I was there for was great. And I met four new people that I wouldn't have talked to. Got to learn about a organization, nonprofit in the community that I haven't interacted with before. So I think those are the kinds of connections that are made there that are really cool. And I was literally there less than an hour and still made all those connections. So really wonderful event again and really worthwhile. So that's all I have.
Councilmember Hubbard.
I will echo Councilmember Hatfield's comment with that event. It was wonderful. And yeah, I was able to actually meet a few community members that live in my ward, so it was kind of nice to engage with them. There has been a lot of weeks in between. I think the most notable thing was I did do an electrical tour with Andrew Romine. That was very informative. You talked about the LED lights. I got to tour the public municipal building there, so that was kind of cool. And go and look at all the substations and kind of see the insides and learn about what each one does. And it was really informative. So I suggest if you guys have like an hour and a half or something sometime to take a ride with him. And yeah, next up on the tour is hopefully snowplow and
We're getting
fun things.
quick.
I
It's getting warm.
I know.
Yeah.
I talked to Brian when I was here last week, but yeah,
Luke hopes you have to wait till next year to do that.
maybe. I don't know. Maybe there's something he can show me or something.
The worst
I don't know.
snowstorm of last year was in April.
Yeah, that's very true or
We had
whatever.
a pretty bad one
Your
almost a
handle
year
off.
ago this week too. I Facebooked it.
I just gotta send out the bat signal. I said, I live down the street, so I can just run up there if I need to or whatever. But no, it was really informative. That was, I think, the big thing that I did in like the last couple weeks or whatever. I can't think of anything else at this time, so.
Thank you. Number one.
Let's see, our needs table just also echo the other sentiments too. I mean, it was a great event, well-attended, and, you know, I think that, also I just coincidentally happened to meet a couple other community members who happen to live in my ward too, so it was great. And I thought that it was also great to engage with a wide variety of different ages and backgrounds too. There were a couple students from Chaska High School at one of the tables, as well as on the other side, some other people were retired, and with the Chaska History Center, things like that. So it's like a really wide spectrum of people, and so it was really, really good. Let's see, other note, next week I will not be present at the meeting, the council meeting next week, because I'll be out of country for work. And for a couple other items, so on, was it on last Wednesday? We had, last Wednesday, I attended the Suburban Transit Association's legislative breakfast. We had a number of different representatives from state legislature who were in attendance. And as part of that, it was our opportunity to spend some time to kind of get to know them a little bit and also present some of our agenda related to funding for suburban transit, specifically Southwest Transit and also other suburban transit providers. In attendance, so that everyone's aware of that, Representatives Torkelson, Bonner, Albright, Tabke, and Senators Osmet, Carlson, Hall, and Clausen were all in attendance. We did, invite Jensen and Bo as well, but they weren't able to attend. But it was a really productive meeting, and I think they got a lot out of it. It's interesting too that having had a chance to speak with some of them, it was very eye-opening that there's a lot of things that, because there's so many issues that they have to look at from the state perspective, that there was a lot of things they didn't realize about funding for transportation here. Like, they said, hey, we voted for funding to increase funding for not suburban transit, for transit in general, expecting that a share would get, handed down to us, but not as much got handed down as they necessarily expected, right? And so that was a shock to them, or an eye-opener to them. And so, to help share some of the realities of what we're dealing with as a public transit agency are significant. Also hearing some of the stories too are important for them to realize the impact of some of the, the policy and funding changes, the funding challenges that we've been experiencing. And also some of the challenges we're having through support from like Met Council, for example. In addition to that, there's also, something also related, there's the Transportation Day at the Capitol. That's on Wednesday, March 18th, which is coming up. And I think the question I had was that is the mayor planning and attending that one? Or?
I believe so.
Okay.
That's one, if any of you are able to come, we're actually going to be submitting tomorrow requests for having consideration of Highway 41 be included in the bonding bill. And so typically this is a day that sort of twofold. You get a chance to hear from some transportation leaders as part of more of like a conference in the morning. And then typically sort of the key legislators will set aside time to be able to talk to you about specific transportation related issues. And so we've always used it as an opportunity to go and help lobby for any projects that we have in the mix. So for 4 years, we went up and lobbied for the interchange up here. So if you're able to come, just let me know. We just need to get you registered.
Is that different? I have that marked on the calendar with the League of Minnesota Cities Legislative Day. So
Yeah,
is
that's
that
different than the leagues.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
This is specifically only related to transportation.
Okay.
Yep.
What was the date again on that?
March 18th.
Yep, it's the same day as the TAB meeting too.
Yep. And
So-
it's at 8:30 a.m. And, my experience has been 8:30 to 10:30, you're usually sort of hearing from some speakers at the hotel. And then usually about that time, we start migrating over to the Capitol and get your meetings in. And so typically we're done about 1 or 2 o'clock.
I think I'll probably try to attend that. Well, I think that with the TAB meeting going on, a TAB's usually at 11:30 or 12:30, depending upon the day if they have a executive session.
I'll take that back about the mayor. No, he told me he couldn't because of that. Because of the, because that's a Wednesday, right?
Yeah, that's the same day as TAB.
Yeah, so he actually said he couldn't be at that.
Oh, so he's gonna go to TAB, not the.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
In that case, okay, so I will probably plan to go to that.
Okay.
So I'll plan on attending that, so, and well, he attends TAB, so.
Okay.
But certainly, I certainly welcome the company if, and the support too, because, this is pretty important stuff, and this is a rare opportunity to kind of get in front of the legislature to actually, pass down the checks for the money.
I already had something marked on my calendar, so you can count
Yeah.
me. It was Minnesota cities, but I'll
Well,
switch
just
it.
drop me an email if you guys want me to sign you up, and
Sure.
we can carpool.
Yep. Sounds good.
Anything else?
I think that's all I've got.
Matt?
Just a reminder, if you're available, we do have our Employee Years of Service Recognition Breakfast. This is Thursday, 7:30 in the morning, over at the Event Center. So, a lot of employees to recognize again this year, including another one that's a 40-year employee, so.
Yeah, I'm unable to attend, but I, again, just want to, as everyone here, I'm sure, is they just, thanks for the great service. I mean, it is awesome to see those numbers and emphasize how great it is to work for the city of Chaska. So, good to see.
Yeah, it's pretty, 40 years is pretty impressive.
It is. Okay. Well, that end of the table.
I'm good.
I don't have anything.
All right, that leaves me. I will echo the Marnitas table, engage. It was a little interesting event for me, just different, because actually my wife had a conflict, so I elected to bring my two kids, which was good. You gave me a hard time because you said to swap places usually.
Kid was sick, he was supposed
there
to
you
be
go.
there.
So it was a little hard to actively engage because you're kind of keeping an eye on them, but you still engage and you kind of just observe them. And so it was interesting just to watch the kids section, actually, right? Because that's our future leaders and our future generations, and just playing together, engaging together, not a care in the world. So that was an interesting perspective. And so that was just kind of eye-opening in general, right? I just think that's kind of an interesting perspective that if you look at future leaders, color, skin, height, race, doesn't matter. They're all building trains and throwing darts at things, type of thing. So that was kind of cool. And then the other interesting comment that I had from that, so then I get my kids in the car and I'm kind of like, don't know that way, no or that. And my oldest goes, that was actually fun. So,
I hear that all the time.
they didn't have much choice. I chose, hey, we're going, and they were willing participants, which are good, but you never know what they're gonna, unfiltered minds say. So those are just kind of, but it was good to see, I think similar turnout, I would say, probably.
Yeah, we had between about 250 and 300 for the first one, and I think, we actually put out more tables this time and, than we did last time, and most of them were pretty full.
Yeah, I think it was about the 250 mark this time is what I heard. I think one difference is that it seemed like people didn't necessarily stick through the whole event. There was a little bit more coming and going last time, so it never quite felt quite as full. And it might have been due to the added tables as well as last time. But we had a pretty close attendance.
Good.
One thing did kind of feel like, I only had a little overlap because I had to leave early in the last time. Kind of felt like some of the stuff when they started, talk about, okay, well, everyone, gathered in this age group, and it kind of felt like it was the same thing. It didn't feel different than the last time. So, I think there's something to said about that where it's like, so if someone was like there the last time, it's like, oh, it's the same thing. Why stick around? It's not like it's new, or especially because it was marketed a little bit like, okay, now that you've learned things, how do you engage? And that was, just, it kind of felt like it was the same thing.
Yep.
I had last Monday, the February Eastern Carver County Community Recreation Advisory Board meeting. The two guest speakers, it's a mouthful to say.
It is, no, I just remember something else. That's all.
So we had Dr. Brooks was there about the diversity and inclusion update, which was very informative. He talked a little bit about some of the pillars that they're developing and and one of the things that resonated just for me in my other career, in my other life, was just about the importance of employers, businesses that choose to work in in Chaska and the surrounding areas, and how important diversity and inclusion is, and it really is. It is just important to understand that you can have all the degrees you need and paper and intelligence you want, but if you can't work with someone that's not exactly who you are, it is hard to succeed in the environment. And teaching our kids to learn that and understand that so they can be successful, which I think everyone motives aside, would agree is the goal of an educational system is to raise your kids to be successful and give them the schools to be successful. So I thought that was very important to understand and emphasize just my pure proud feelings that I have about the city of Chaska and how we've been at the table with the school, the school board, and working on the Martinez table and inclusion, stuff like that. I do take a good sense of pride that our city has decided to step up and continue to do that, and I appreciate that, so that was awesome. The other thing I was share was on there was they talked about club care, which is the before and after school programs at the schools, and how that is actually their largest program. And for many parents, we talked a little bit about the enrollment process. It's like 6 a.m. You are ready on your computer, especially if your kid's in kindergarten and need to get them into club care, because it's super convenient. So they stay after school, they have activities there. If you have to drop your kid off early, it is a huge benefit for families and parents, because they're well taken care of, having fun. I've noticed that this year that at times I go pick up my son and he's disappointed to see me because he wanted to be there longer. So I mean that tells you all you need to know about kind of the quality of the program. So but they're busted at the seams. I mean they the demand fills up quickly and you get on waiting lists, and so it was kind of interesting to see. Last two things, just the community center carnival is March 6th at the community center at 5:30 to 7:30. Always a fun event. And then my safe way of doing this, because I didn't want to exclude, was just to wish all Chaska High School winter sports successful playoff seasons as we start. We're in through completed with the dance. Just wanted to wish kind of all that Chaska High School a successful playoff for winter sports season. And that is all I have. Anything else? You thought of something?
I will speak on it next meeting, but I did attend my advisory board meeting, but I will prepare something more formal.
Well, that leaves one thing left, and that's the adjourn word.
Motion to adjourn.
A motion by Councilmember Hatfield to adjourn, second by Councilmember Wong. No more discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same side. We are adjourned.
Yeah,
it's
that's actually,
broken.
we're gonna. Yeah.
There's a lot more flexibility.
I'll call the order the Chaska Economic Development Authority meeting for February 24th, 2020.
But I think we could get.
Nate, will you call, that was a funny sound. Nate, will you call roll call?
Yes, Commissioner Hatfield,
Here?
Commissioner Hubbard,
Here.
Commissioner Wong,
Here.
and so would it be Vice President Graw, I believe?
Is that how that works?
President Pro Tem.
President Pro Tem Graw, okay. And then President Windschuttle is not here tonight.
Thank you. And I am here. You didn't ask me to say yes. You can clarify my name, but I am
Yes.
here. That brings us to number 3, adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Hubbard,
Second.
second by Commissioner Hatfield. Any further discussion on the agenda? All in favor of approving the agenda, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Agenda approved. Item 4 is approve previous meeting minutes from the February 3rd, 2020 Chaska Economic Development Authority.
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from
Mo-
February 3rd.
Motion by Commissioner Hubbard,
Second.
second by Commissioner Hatfield. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the meeting minutes from the February 3rd, 2020 Chaska Economic Development Authority, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That brings us to 5, discussion items. Adopt Resolution EDA 2020-2, adopt resolution ratifying sale and issuance of bonds.
President Pro Tem and Commissioners. So this is the item, this actually was on the council agenda too, but we have to approve it through both the city and the EDA since it's EDA debt. So this has to do with the purchase of the 55-acre park property up in southwest Chaska. If you remember back a few meetings ago, the City Council and the EDA did set a parameters resolution that allowed us to go out for a private sale, which basically said we're looking for no more than 6.75 million, and that it would have a maximum interest cost of 4%. We were pretty certain we were going to get significantly better than that, and we did. We got 2.82%, and to put that in perspective, that's not non-taxable debt, that's taxable debt. It's super low, so 2.82%, and based on that interest, then it ends up being financing of $6.285 million. So we're very pleased with the results of this and do recommend ratifying the resolution to basically issue the bonds.
And the term duration of this is?
20 years.
20 years, okay.
Questions, comments?
Saw that and I was very impressed, so.
Yeah,
my
it's
comment.
like, we can get numbers like that, that's a good
Nope.
thing. Yep. Can I make a motion?
You may.
Motion to adopt resolution 2020-2 ratifying the sale and authorized issuance of $6,285,000 taxable full-term investment installation, full-term installment purchase revenue bonds, Series 2020A, and authorizing execution of related documents.
I have a motion by Commissioner Wong,
Second.
second by Commissioner Hubbard. Further discussion? Seeing none, I'd look, all in favor of adopting resolution number 2020-2, ratifying the sale of authorizing issues of the bonds, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Resolution adopted. Brings us to other business on the EDA. We'll start at this end. Anything?
No business.
No.
All right. see a lot of head shakes. That brings us to adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
I do have a motion of adjournment from Commissioner White Hatfield, seconded by Hubbard.
Becoming March.
It's true. It's the chair. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.